Okay, well, thanks very much for coming to the first of the Little Red Rooster sessions, which is about luxury's new meaning and how luxury might have changed over the last few years. I'm really pleased to introduce the panel. So going from my right around, we have David Harbour, who is from David Harbour and is David Harbour, known for his stunning garden art. And then Nigel Palmer, who's the marketing director of Victoria and Albert Baths. Alan White, who is the managing director in the UK for Lerva. John Ain, who's the chair and co-founder of Anushka and also the co-founder of Links of London, as well as being involved in an arm's length worth of incredible British brands that I hope we'll get to. And then Izzy King, head of interiors and also associate director at Little Red Rooster. So there was a little blurb that we put together for this talk that said, I won't read the whole thing, but it said, luxury used to mean the highest quality products, the highest status, and highest rated shopping experience, and now it's become more nuanced. The people favour personalised experiences and rely on personal recommendations in a way that perhaps they didn't, kind of pre-pandemic, which is, I think, one narrative. The other way of thinking about it is that as soon as the pandemic stopped, I think Hermes had its best ever sales day in its 300-year history, and people just ran out to buy handbags, which on one hand is sort of funny, on the other hand is kind of reassuring. I'm not sure, but do we think? I guess if we kick off with John, maybe we had a talk earlier about buying less and buying better, and I wonder if you thought people have actually changed their attitudes towards nice things.
I like to think they have, in the sense that I think we're all very aware of the secularity of fashion. We're all very aware of landfill. We're all very aware of excess production and what we do with it. And it was interesting. It was some years ago at All About Brown, we put a 5-year guarantee on our swim shorts. And this was very revolutionary at the time, that you'd actually guarantee a pair of swim shorts from manufacturing errors. And they were obviously very expensive shorts, and the messaging was, if you buy a pair of these shorts, they're going to last a long time and you're not going to have to replace it. And very much similarly in the jewelry industry, Anushka herself has sort of pioneered this thinking that we should all be buying real jewelry rather than fake jewelry. And I think her sort of bête noire is people who plate jewelry, so gold-plated jewelry, which not only wears off within a year or two, has sort of rather nasty processes for plating and cyanide and so forth, and inevitably ends up in landfill because it can't really be successfully reincarnated. So I think, and much the same, I think, for real diamonds. We've got enough diamonds in this world. We don't have to mine any more. And the actual process of creating artificial diamonds is very wasteful from an energy point of view. So I think from a personal point of view, we are heading in that direction. And I think it's resonating with the consumer, who is sort of thinking a bit more carefully about going and buying, masses of stuff at cheap prices and actually buying a little bit less that's going to last longer, and thinking about style rather than fashion.
I think materials and sort of different materials are important to everyone on this panel. I wondered if, Alan, you might talk about the Sinostone and exactly what that is for your with your incredible TV, because that sort of comes into this conversation, I think.
Yeah, sure. So Lova's just introduced a product called the Iconic, which is a pretty grand name, I appreciate it. But and the whole idea behind that is made by so it's one of our televisions, the Build Eye, essentially slotted into a stone stand, but it's called Sinostone. So it's a stone composite that is recyclable and has been made of recycled materials. So people are obviously pushing the whole sustainable angle these days, and Love have been doing it for a long time, not just with the Sinostone. So that's made, it's within the procurement of the product. The procurement of that stand is done only a few kilometers from our factory in Germany. We've set up another couple of suppliers to meet demand, but also within the same vicinity, so it's not traveling far. And then you've got, for example, everything else in the chain. So we talk about we've got bigger cardboard boxes and there's more cardboard, more packaging. You think, well, how does that meet with a sustainable message? But the answer is so much of that stuff, as John said, goes to landfill. If it's things are damaged in transit, you imagine it's consumer electronics that's traveling potentially thousands of kilometers. If it gets damaged in transit, that stuff just goes straight to landfill. But if we can mitigate the impact of that, literally, then fantastic. We've saved a lot of material, a lot of heartache. And similarly, so again, as John said about the materials used, we'll use, a fabric on the television that you can see downstairs. That's procured 20 kilometers from our factory. So it's not having to travel too far. The plastics are even more durable, so they last longer. The components are more expensive. They last longer. And so when people ask about the tangible differences between, televisions, which are a commodity, then that's it. It will last longer. So if you buy a TV, I think we're preconditioned to see it being in this cycle of going and buying a new one every couple of years when the new technology comes out. We're saying, no, keep it because it will last a long time. We offer a good guarantee. You can have that for hopefully 15 more plus years.
It also looks like a piece of art, to be fair, doesn't it? It's not the sort of thing you want to, chuck out.
Well, that's it. I think, again, it's taking that sort of black plastic box that might dominate a living space when maybe you've thought about the soft furnishings, you've thought about that coffee table, you've put, we've got this beautiful furniture here from Beau Concept. People have put thought into that process, and usually then, let's say, a television or the audio product tends to be an afterthought in that. It's become more about feature and function and utility rather than something that can actually look nice, whereas the iconic is visually striking. You would want to have that as a piece of art in your living room or wherever else you choose to have it.
Fantastic. We're just going to go down there. Nigel, have you seen the customer change in your? It's quite a specific sector you have.
I think so. I think just to follow on a couple of points there is I'd expected maybe over the last couple of years to see more of our customers coming in and sustainability being kind of higher up their list. And I don't think we see that so much as just this absolute expectation that when you're in that end of the market, this is what you're going to deliver. So they're not coming in and necessarily explicitly saying, well, okay, talk to me about your sustainable production. But what they're expecting is that they're going to buy something that you've gone through and thought that process through and made sure that it is as sustainable as possible and that they are buying a product that's going to last. But it's quite subtle. I think that change is quite subtle.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you particularly because I think you've done Chelsea Flower Show for 30 years now?
Getting on 30
which
years.
one imagines sort of an oasis of Britishness that remains unchanged by the passing of time, perhaps. Is that, have you seen a new customer?
It's definitely changed. I think I'm going to go back to the question of people's perception of luxury, which I think was the origin of the question. And it's, from my point of view, it's that they are expecting more of their, even the lesser brands. And from our point of view, we are upping our game and delivering more luxury. We're being more conscious of all the elements of what we do, and the ultimate part of that is to make sure that we're exceeding customers' expectations. It goes without saying that if you're not being environmentally conscious or you're not being, a responsible employer, somebody will see through it. And you can greenwash it as much as you like, but even the staff in the company will react differently to how, whether it's a genuine cause or not. So I'm going a bit around the houses here, but the Chelsea Flower Show is a good case in point. 30 years ago, we were one of 3 sculpture stands. There are now thousands of sculpture stands and less teak furniture coming in from Far East. Standards are going up. People are expecting more, and we're being harried by some incredible talent. The main thing that I want to sort of get over is that people would have in the past bought an object for their garden that is considered to be a piece of art. They are now much more educated, much more aware and sophisticated, and there is still a marketplace for what is perceived to be a piece of art. but they are conscious through education, through branding, through what they're being presented as options. They are very much more sophisticated in their choices, which means consequently we have to up our game as well to be, to remain where we want to be.
Do you think has that come from as an offshoot of the pandemic, where people just have more time to read up on stuff and learn about stuff? Do you think that's a
I don't know. I personally think people were not spending. I mean, I glibly say that they didn't go skiing, £50,000. They didn't go Caribbean cruising. They didn't go on safari. So a lot of our clients had an enormous amount of money which was waiting to be spent. So the pandemic also meant that they wanted to invest in quality. They wanted to invest in something that perhaps had a bit more meaning than something that was maybe a bit frivolous. So we are creating pieces that are an investment for the future, and both aesthetically and emotionally.
Yeah. Izzy, if I can, does that chime with your experiences? You're sort of kind of uniquely placed between clients and the press as the story of wanting more, buying less, buying better. Does that sound right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for us speaking to press, I mean, like you were saying earlier, luxury, when you think of luxury, you automatically think of price. You think of something being out of reach and something being unattainable. But I don't necessarily think that's luxury to me. Like, luxury is something that is the best of the best within its market, whatever price bracket it's at. So it could be something like your water bottle. You don't want a plastic water bottle. You want a water bottle that's reusable, that's made from sustainable materials, that has a lock feature so it doesn't spill, that possibly maintains and controls the temperature. So that's obviously something that's shoppable. But if you get one that does everything like that, that is the best of the best within its market. And for us, when we're speaking to press, we can tell a journalist that something is luxury because that's our duty, and a journalist has a duty to report that to its readers. So for us, we have to really get across what makes our brand special, what makes it different, what makes it unique, and that is the the craftsmanship, the materials, the manufacturing process, where it's made, all of those details. We have to really highlight that. And I think for a journalist, they have to then know that they can Google said brand, and it's all backed up through the additional marketing touch points, so through their website, through their social media channels. That feeling of luxury has to carry through however the customer would reach that brand. Yes,
that's good. I also think it's almost like if you don't have that part of your story, then you're missing out. Exactly. I wondered how people felt about the idea of buying products in Britain and what Britain stands for now and its place in it used to have a set of values. I wonder if you think they've changed, or that it still does have a set of values, or what?
Johnny, while I have the microphone, I talked to a couple of people in our team this week about Brexit and the consequences of it, and I'd expected them to say to me, well, look, it was hell for the first year, but we're kind of through it and it's fine now. And I have to say, both people, one of them is our international sales director, one of them is our logistics director. Both of them thudded the table quite hard with their foreheads at the mention of Brexit. So Brexit, unfortunately, is an ongoing thing. And the challenges around, kind of clawing back the basic disadvantage that it gives us is ongoing. I mean, we're lucky. We sell more than half of what we make abroad, and we do that well, and we're still growing. But we would have grown more without, that's the bottom line. We would have grown more. And, people can argue about the politics of it, but that is absolutely the case for us.
At Tanushka, I travel quite a lot, and we're doing a lot of stuff in America. And people look at the UK at the moment and think we're a basket case, and that we have pressed the self-destruct button about 3 years ago. And they cannot understand why we've had so many prime ministers, why we've gone through COVID and beaten ourselves up. And I would say that there is an affection for the UK abroad, and there is an understanding about UK design, craftsmanship, and longevity, and that sense of pageant that we have. But there's also a lot of people out there thinking, what the hell are they doing? And that is quite damaging, in terms of trying to export to Europe. I don't know how many of you tried to do that, but I mean, it's almost impossible. So that whole part of the business, so hence a lot of people focusing on the Middle East, where there's obviously a lot of money and a lot of Russians, and focusing on the US. But I would have thought at the moment we're we're in a difficult situation.
Yeah, and I think we're not, we sometimes like to believe that, British design is inherently better, and you have to prove that it's better. You have to go out there in the market and show that what you offer is better. You can't simply say our design is British and therefore it's the best. It's a lot more difficult than that. And when you go to other markets outside, not just in Europe, but outside Europe, there's a lot of really good brands out there. And, every single, the differences between the brands, if you take our brassware and you take the best brassware brands in the world, the quality differences between them are very small. The design, they all offer brilliant designs. So you can't simply rely on being British, and any disadvantage hurts you very hard. But I mean, Alan, you have a different perspective coming from the huge advantage of having German engineering in your.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels there I see between the whole aspect of German engineering. We think of German engineering and you immediately jump to Mercedes, BMW, the German car brands, and it's synonymous with something. It's synonymous with quality. There's an expectation there, I believe. But the same, I do believe, is the case for British design. When you do put that stamp, you put the Union Jack on something, it does stand for something. A lot of this, you could probably say, are maybe positive stereotypes, dare I say. So you're right, and I don't think you can slap a flag on something and immediately it becomes quality. But I think there's an inherent trust by doing that it's going to meet the expectations that the consumer has for that thing. I've been involved in the high-end audio market for many years, and prior to Louva. And that was all. We've got an incredible history and heritage of amazing high-end audio brands in the UK, where it's whether it's Meridian and Cambridge Audio and Kef, all these guys, and they're all based around Cambridgeshire, Huntingdon, etc. They're all a little microcosm for some reason, but we tend to do it really well. But to your point about the whole Brexit situation, again, without getting into politics, it has been really tough for us. So we're importing our products from Germany. So that's a challenge in the first place, even though we are a subsidiary of the headquarters. For us trying to get, we used to get products delivered from Germany direct to our partners. That doesn't happen anymore because it's too costly to do that. So we've had to set up warehousing here. But then for even us to deal with Republic of Ireland is an additional challenge because we've got other customs duties, etc., and just the administrative nightmare of it all has been, I don't want to say disastrous, it's not quite as dramatic as that, but certainly it's hindered us, there's zero doubt.
I'm not going to say anything else about Brexit now.
I was just going to ask if there was any light at the end of the tunnel for that situation at all.
We're not seeing any.
Okay.
I think we're quite fortunate in the fact whilst we are selling a product, it's actually perceived as art, and therefore trading on the sort of Britishness, or actually it's not just British, it's a quirkiness, it's a creative maverick endeavour, and that has meant that that we seem to be we're riding the storm quite well. In America, we're selling incredibly well. It's now well over 50% of our turnover, but Europe has dropped away. Europe was never an enormous amount, and I concur that there are people in my business tearing their hair out trying to organise logistics for delivering to, even transiting to Switzerland is a nightmare. We're having to employ Polish drivers to keep things on. So it's not been clever. And don't get me started on it, but the end result is for us, the trading on the Britishness, we are trading on the quirky side of Britishness, and the fact that there are so many incredible creatives and designers and products coming out of Britain. We all know that Italy makes beautiful sofas and tables and chairs and whatever, but if you want it to last, you'll have to go to Germany. But if you want it to be fun and clever and something that you can talk about, then you probably get something British, a make-piece piece of furniture versus a polycarbonate trendy table. I'll take both.
John, just to come back to you, because some of the previous brands you touched on, Olive Brown earlier, fantastic swimwear brand, Bremont watches you were involved in, Walpole, the supporters of luxury, British luxury, I guess startups, new brands, getting behind them. What is the through line between those? There are many watch brands, there are many swimwear brands before them. What was it that made them, for you, stand out as worth investing in and worth supporting?
Well, after we sold Links of London, which is about 2006, 2007, I decided I wanted to have a more of a plural existence. So I started investing in small British brands at that point. I mean, this is slightly off pitch because we're talking about brands, but it was very much about the individuals involved and the vision of what they wanted to do. Bremont was particularly interesting because it was about bringing the heritage of watchmaking back to the UK. Because if you look back at the sort of like the First World War, Second World War, we were preeminent in watchmaking. I mean, Rolex was actually founded in London. It's no surprise that Greenwich Mean Time is called Greenwich Mean Time. And we'd lost all that. You know, a lot of these factories have been repurposed for armaments production during the First and Second World War to make firing pins for Lee Enfield rifles and alike. So there was a vision there of creating something really special. And I stepped down about 4 years ago, and Nick and Giles English have done an outstanding job at taking it forward and publicising, you know, what a new industry is coming back in the UK. So I think what appealed to me was that sort of braveness and that vision and that sense of patriotism that went along with it. I mean, there's another brand I'm involved in at the moment that has a very similar vision, which is Maving, Maeving, and we're, after 12 months, we're the leading electric motorcycle company in the UK, and we're making our motorbikes in Silverstone, which is where we had the first Bremont factory. And the reason we've gone to Silverstone is there's all that technical knowledge that comes with Formula One. And you should all look it up because these are fantastic retro-styled motorbikes. They're almost, I like to say they're the iPhone of the motorcycle world. Brilliantly designed, pleasingly slotted together. So very similar. I was very attracted to that, both by these two young founders who are terrific and the sort of vision for motorcycling into the next century. Sorry, it's a rather long answer.
No, that's great. I think it sounds like the through line with all these stories is that it's storytelling and it's luxury with some depth to it. Maybe I don't know if you agree with that.
I think it's just a difference. I mean, the Bremont. I know the Bremont story very well, and it's remarkable and it's wonderful and it's got soul. You can get your Patek Philippe because it's the best of, perceived to be one of the best. But to get something that's got a quirkiness, which is what Britain is really famous for, that's, I think, where we win out. And that sort of contributes to the concept of luxury. I don't know what the price point of a Bremont watch is, but there are dozens of other brands out there at a similar price point. But where they win through is they've created a narrative. They've created an expectation of something that is a little bit quirky, a little bit unique, in the same way that we try to make whatever we produce for the market, or specifically when it's a commissioned piece, a bespoke piece, it's got to have something about it that makes it different. So the difference, from my point of view, makes it luxury. It isn't nothing's run of the mill. Otherwise, things are made in series, they're made in factories, they're made to, in batch. But we are, as a nation, we're quite good at creating a sort of a narrative around the quirkiness of what we're doing. We want it, the Germans make incredible cars. We make Morgans, which fall to pieces, but everyone wants to buy one. Once they've got the Mercedes, they'll buy the Morgan.
I haven't heard quirkiness used with luxury before, but actually it's a really, really good description. Perrin and Rose taps they're designed in Rainham in East London for some obscure reason. Our foundry is in Wolverhampton, so it's not that close. The assembly then comes back to Rainham. So we take the things backwards and forwards. At some point, we'll sort that out. But the designers sit in an office with some large glass plate windows looking across to the assembly line. And it's a risky manoeuvre because our designers at Perrin & Rowe are known for designing. I started my life as a mechanical engineer, and we used to talk about design for manufacturing, trying to design things that were, simple and made it very easy to produce. Perrin & Rowe's designers design things that are difficult to produce. There's a perversity to it. I don't think they do it especially deliberately. It just seems to fall out of the designs that they produce. They're often a lot of arguments between the shop floor and the designers. And as I say, it's amazing to me that in the 5 or 6 years I've worked with them, that plate glass window has never been broken. But yeah, exactly. So there is a kind of quirkiness to the way that they're done, and it comes out of a bloody mindedness that I think the Germans who make brilliant taps don't have. Yeah.
I think you mentioned storytelling as part of that whole thing, and I think you're right. It doesn't necessarily need to be a heritage brand or have a lot of history. You can't buy history, you can't make up history unless you've been going for an amount of time, right? But the story is I think really important to a luxury brand. So, for example, Loewe, we've got the benefit of having, this is our 100th year of existence, so we've got the history, we've got the heritage. But to me, especially when we're dealing in this commodity market where, television's a television until it's not. So when we talk to customers, we don't tend to talk about so much about the specifications. You talk about the latest 4K gaming stuff and does it have X, Y, Z, and all the buzzwords of the day. So the vast majority of the time, the answer is yes, we do, but we don't lead with that. So historically, we just tell people about, do you know about Loewe? Because honestly, we're quite self-aware in that you walk down the street and ask 100 people, there'll be 99 who probably don't at the moment, which is something we need to work on. But when we do talk to them about it, we speak to our partners about spending 5-10 more minutes with that particular customer than we would do with if they were buying a household name, one of the Korean or Japanese brands. And it's all about the history. It's all about the fact that Loewe comes from the Loewe brothers who founded the company back in 1923, and how they worked with John Logie Baird to develop the world's first electronic television in 1931. And they were the first to bring a stereo television. They were first to bring television with the internet on it. But even from the humble beginnings, that during World War II, the Loewe brothers were Jewish, so they were just not. Germany was not a great place for them at that time, right? So they were exiled to the United States, and at that point in time, they met other notable exiles. They became pals with Albert Einstein. There's pictures with them on family holiday. You can't buy that, but that's part of the story, right? So one of the brothers sadly died, but the Sigmund Loewe came back to Germany. Everything, took everything that was in the factory, which was, not in a great place. It was in Berlin at the time. Put everything on a train and moved it to a place called Kronach, which is a blink and you'll miss it, very, very typical, almost fairy tale old German, Bavarian. It's right in Upper Franconia, right in the doorstep of Franconian forest. And the legend goes that they were brought there because it had an abundance of natural material, i.e. wood, which all the outer casing was made from. So when you talk to people and you exude that passion about it, that's what makes, for me, that's part of what makes a luxury brand, in my opinion.
Has the way that you need to communicate that, because it's all about communication, has that changed in recent years?
There's a difficulty there because we talk about the heritage, that 100-year thing, and I think because it's very important for us to talk about the 100 years because there's no other TV brand out there or within that space that has that kind of heritage. So that's one of our, if you want to call it, USPs. But now the way we've got to talk about it is via new methods, i.e. social media, and make sure we do that right. So we're mixing the old with the new. I don't know if there's any challenges. It's a very it's a longer process now to get across our message versus most others, because you have to incorporate that history and heritage into it. But yeah, I don't know if it's changed entirely.
I must be the Luddite in the room because, I started 30 odd years ago making what I do. And I remember saying to my wife, we don't need a brochure. That would be just a waste of money. We now have an incredible marketing department, sales marketing. We have a presence on the internet that I don't even pretend to understand. I don't even know where the website is, and I should really have taken up the offer of the co-founder of Google when I lunched with him years ago, of him saying, would you like us to help you climb the ladder? And I said, no, we don't need that sort of help. Yeah, my wife wouldn't speak to me for months. Marketing, I don't understand it, but I can see it working. I know, we're all here because in a way we are presenting ourselves as people who have a voice in an industry, and we are all interested in the luxury. So we're there's a consciousness about it. Our marketing has become more sophisticated. The clientele is infinitely more sophisticated. You can't just say this is a wonderful piece of art. You have to. There's a narrative that's created. And that's where I come back to is what is luxury. It is actually about not just the product. It's about the story. It's the history. It's the future. It's the longevity. It's the intent, and actually it's the integrity. Mostly, it's about is this whole story, and the product, and the people that make it. Is there integrity behind it? Because there may well be by the people who make widgets, there's integrity, but they don't need the narrative because it's a commodity.
I think marketing has become more of a dialogue with the consumer. And I think we got a bit of that during COVID. Suddenly we were all sort of kept out of shops, kept out. And I know at Anushka herself stepped forward and started to talk to her customers through social media, through blogs, through communication, and that was a bit of a moment in time, and it was interesting being in this room earlier, talking about these lovely coffee machines, and we were talking about they come in 6 colors, you can buy whatever fits your kitchen, and what I see a lot in the businesses I'm involved in, this whole customization. At Anushka, it might be somebody coming in and saying, I love that piece of jewelry, but I want it in white gold. Or I'd like you to make a bespoke charm of a trip that I've just made with my boyfriend to wherever. So it's this sense of engagement and dialogue, which is completely different to what it was 10 years ago, where you just produce a product and somebody comes along and buys it. And the consumer is that much more demanding, in a nice way, much more, as David was saying, much more educated, much more about what can be achieved. And I think that is something that is, it's only going to get more.
Those lovely coffee machines are by Smeg, by the way. Another fantastic brand. Izzy, just to go back to you on also the storytelling, the narrative. If the customers become more clued up, do you think that the media has, the journalist has? Do they want stories that are deeper and better?
Yes, they do. I think with media, obviously nowadays we have so many different channels. So you have your print media, the online market, social media has completely changed things. I think social media is a funny one for luxury brands, because for me, social media is shoppable things. In the first instance, that's how I often used to use Instagram. I think with the national media, there's been a really interesting shift, and I'm probably going a bit off piece on your topic here, but there's been a bit of an interesting shift with the luxury titles. So the Times, for example, the Lux was an occasional supplement. Now it's got its own dedicated website, its own dedicated channels. And I think with the kind of the luxury press, the goalpost might be slightly narrower. People might hate me for saying that, because you don't get the wealth of shopping pages that maybe fast-moving consumer goods have access to. But the value and engagement you get from being in a Sunday paper and something like FT How to Spend It, in Times Lux, in Telegraph Luxury, those kind of titles, the value you get from PR in those that you can publicize through, other channels, through your social media as well. You're getting that brand recognition from such a quality title. So I think that's hugely valuable for luxury brands too.
I guess that goes back to. Oh, sorry, go on.
Well, I was just going to. I think we're in a room where I know there's quite a few journalists and people who work in different parts of the media. We are so fortunate in this country that we have such a vibrant media environment, and I'm responsible for EMEA because our American parents have split the world into three: North America, China, and everywhere else, which they decide to call EMEA, so. A lot of the marketing that I'm responsible for is outside the UK now, and it's just so evident to me as I learn more and more about those markets, what a unique ecosystem we have here, and particularly in interiors where we have such quality titles, such quality journalism, and people who are interested in those stories and are prepared to write about them. So I was just going to say how fortunate we are, to particularly in the UK to have that to help us, tell our stories.
And from my experience of it, there's incredible integrity with it as well. I mean, you can cajole an Italian tourist to write nice things about you, but you have to be very genuine and respectful when you're dealing with the British press, because I don't know. I think there's a professionalism there. I've never cajoled an Italian tourist. Okay. Okay. I don't think.
So, if the title of this talk is the future of luxury, what's next? Do you think? How will brands continue to evolve as we go forward?
All we're doing is just trying to engage more with our clients, and keep ahead of the game. Which is, and unfortunately, I'm noticing that there's a lot of. We're being copied quite a lot, and it's almost impossible to stop it. It's dull. So once you've got over the anger, then you just have to focus on getting better. So where are we going as a brand? We're going substantially more international, which is exciting. And I think it's really all just about responding to how people perceive us, which is, a classic English quirky brand. And we're developing that by means of employing new young creatives and getting the message out there.
Yeah, I would echo that to an extent as well from our position. I think Izzy touched on it a little bit there by saying about every touch point, so a luxury brand, luxury to me at least, is not just about having an expensive product or an exclusive product. I wouldn't even say exclusive, but certainly every touch point, every point during the customer journey has to be luxury. And at times I know that we can inevitably fall short at some stage down that line, and it's about making sure that in the future we continue to try and set the standard, and anywhere we don't quite hit that is to make sure that we do. So that's everything from the pre-sale to make sure that we're giving as much information as possible within that our marketing is effective. Then it's the buying experience, and we've got somewhat limited control over that because we deal with third-party retailers and installers, for instance. So we don't have the luxury of having our own people that can be universally trained to a standard. So we've got to ensure that our partners are working to that standard and to pick the right ones. So that at that point, the buying experience needs to be of that standard, and then it's the after sales and the ownership experience as well. So again, everything down that chain needs to be top notch, and if you fall short, that's going to discourage people, and it might even encourage people to actively discourage others from buying. So people are quite vocal in that respect. And again, in this modern age of things like social media, you're so much more exposed and more vulnerable. But I do like what you said, John, about you talked about being like Anushka putting herself forward in video content and whatnot. I think that scene behind the curtain is really important. I think we'll continue to do more of that going forward. I think it's just about staying ahead of the curve, because with our competitors, some of them, like the big Korean brands, they've brought out offshoots of what they do that are, a beautiful floor stand or something that looks like a portrait or an easel, for instance. But that's encroaching on our territory and encroaching on the things that make us potentially different. But we've just got to stay strong, stay the path, and make sure that everything we're doing is from start to finish is of the highest quality.
I think that the things that are going to change is a little bit of what I was saying before, the involvement of our customers. So Anushka's just launched this fantastic new chain called Knuckle. And for a jeweler to design a chain is a bit like a watchmaker designing a movement. It's very technical. It requires an enormous amount of subtlety in the way that the links move and everything else. So she's taking a bunch of customers to our factory in Italy to meet Dino, the goldsmith that she worked with to develop that chain over the last 12 months. Well, 10 years ago, you'd never take your customers to the factory and show how it's made and what the process is. And I think that's really interesting. And I think I think there'll be more of that, and opening up your supply chain and showing people how the process is. I think the other thing is how distribution works. If you want to order your electric motorbike, it comes to your door and you get a training. I mean, even if you want to try a sofa, it comes in, they put it in the room, see what it looks like, and then if you don't like it, it goes off again. And in a way, if you want to order Anushka jewelry, you can ring up and it's delivered to your door, and you try it on and you try it with your outfit and everything else. This is very different way of selling, and we are buying luxury product in very different environments in very different ways. And I think that's great, and I think we have to evolve that and make it more accessible.
I'll close out some questions. Saying, is you got anything to? No.
No, I'm just so glad you didn't ask me anything on Brexit.
Right. You all come from very different, but also there's a lot of synergy, I think, between your very lovely high-end luxury brands. I wondered what the most rewarding bit of feedback from your customers is for each of you. What do you really like to hear?
Another one, please.
The ones that give me most pleasure are the people who've owned the product for years and years and years. So, in my portfolio, as well as the Victoria and Albert bars downstairs, you've got Shaw's sinks. Somebody got in contact with us who had a sink that dated from just after the war. The dates are always stamped underneath, and they're still using it every day. Those Perrin and Rowe taps that are 40 years old, we still make spares for every single tap that we've ever made, and so they can go on and on and on. So to me, those are the really rewarding things. People still love the products after all that time.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that because although we're a consumer electronics brand, right? So we're never the products aren't going to last as long as yours, Nigel. But as John was, I hope you don't mind me telling me privately there, you were saying that you've owned a Lova TV for about 20?
I've owned it for 20 years.
20 years, fantastic. So yeah, the best bit of feedback I can get from a customer is when they say they've owned the brand for about 15, 20 years, wouldn't consider going anywhere else and want to buy another one. So that's seriously, so it's brand loyalty, really.
The nicest experience I have with clients, is that they invariably either become a friend or an ambassador, and it's incredibly rare that they don't come to see you at Chelsea Flower Show or meet you at an event in New York and want to come up and talk about what they bought from you 10, 20, 25 years ago, which is lovely. And there are some incredible examples of them becoming quasi salespeople because they bought into a rather dysfunctional Englishman making sculpture. The brand's grown, and they've followed us, and they'll buy another piece, and they are our sales team. They're our ambassadors.
We had a moment about 3 months ago where Rihanna was photographed walking down Melrose in LA wearing an Anushka charm bracelet. And that was incredible. Her boyfriend had come into our studio in London and had chosen each individual charm, given it to her, and there she is, shot in LA. So that was a huge moment for us.
What did that do for sales?
Well, it's been fantastic. I mean, you know, it was a very bespoke thing, but yeah, no, it's been fantastic. But it was a great sense of, yeah, you can imagine. Yeah.
Amazing. We've got time for questions if anyone has any. I hope people have questions. How do you do this?
Hello there. I'm Kimberly from Optometry Today. Very niche. My question was around that kind of peek behind the curtain into the brands and the people there and the factories, things like that. Do you think this comes from a place of brand loyalty from customers and those who are watching the brands and buying from them, and that kind of real desire to see more of it? Or do you think this is maybe driven from a place of, those customers who maybe are new to a brand, but they're very deliberate in where they're looking? And although you said maybe they're not asking, like, can I please see your supply chain? They are really intentional in kind of what they're looking for. Just wondered if anyone had a kind of perspective.
Well, I've got an answer for that, which is we very often have open workshops. And we have open workshops because you can see our products in the magazines or on the website, but the story behind each product is ridiculously complex, and the quality and the caliber of the craftsmen who make it all the way through. So there's the crazy ideation followed by this incredibly long process of different skills. And we love